November 27th, 2017 meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ansello is excused. Ms. Boyce? Here. Chairwoman DeFlorio?
Here.
Ms. Cayley? Here. Mr. Moyo? Here. President Daniele?
Here.
Is there anyone signed up for the public forum?
There is not.
Is there anyone present who has not signed up to speak who would like to address the committee at this time? Seeing none, the next item on the agenda is the presentation by Robert Franklin, our Chief Financial Officer. He is here tonight to present the portion of the 2018 proposed Monroe County budget as it pertains to planning and economic development. Thank you, Mr. Franklin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as usual, the theme of the presentation is short and sweet, and we'll answer your direct questions when I can get back over to the admin table. First of all, per usual, I'd like to start with just an overview of Monroe County's budget. Overall, at the county level, we're roughly not quite $15 million higher than our adopted budget for 2017. That's about a 1.3% increase over the 2017 adopted. Just looking at the dollars, the largest increase is $14.2 million, and we see that within our mandated spending. For the department that really pertains to this committee, our Department of Planning and Development, the slide you've seen last year, here's what's important to planning and development. Helping local businesses retain jobs and create new jobs. Helping our residents find jobs or perhaps train for better jobs. Planning on the best use of our land or perhaps preserve our land. And helping our community become better, build a better community. Of course, none of this work is done in a vacuum, but in collaboration with other local governments and local agencies. Again, you've probably seen this particular slide every year for the past 100 years. I won't go too far in depth. You all have handouts. Looking at our budget for the Department of Planning and Development, a little different from prior year presentations. I'm including a reminder, at least for most departments and divisions, of what the adopted budget was for last year. You know, our charter requires us to officially compare the current year amended budget to the proposed budget, and there's always a difference between amended and adopted for a lot of departments. So this is just a reminder of what the budget looked for in 2017. With planning and development, they don't bring a lot of referrals before this committee for adoption. The ones they do are usually contract acceptance or grant acceptance that have already been contemplated. So at least for planning and development, you're not seeing a difference between 2017's adopted and amended. Total appropriations for the proposed 18 budget have increased about $228,000. You know, primarily that's due to funding several positions within our economic development division. These aren't new positions. They've been authorized in the past, but perhaps have been held vacant or defunded for some other reason. I would also point out, and you're probably going to hear me say this over and over, either in presentations or when we're handling questions at the table, at least specific to planning and development, I would point out that CSEA, the county's largest union, settled its contract late 2016 or early 2017. Too late to actually have the impact of any salary adjustments reflected in the 17 budget. So looking at the 2018 proposed, you're really seeing about 2 years worth of salary and benefit changes. And again, you'll probably hear me say that over and over throughout these presentations. Just looking real quick, you've seen this slide in previous years. How do we fund our Department of Planning and Development? The relative percentages that you see in this pie chart, very, very similar to last year's. One exception, the amount of administrative reimbursement we're getting from the Community Development Block Grant is lower this year, about 19.3% versus 22.4% last year. We've seen such a decline the past couple of years as HUD reduces the amount of administrative funding we're allowed to keep. So such a decline means, at least proportionately, it's relying on a greater portion of our real property tax to support the department. I think most of you have heard throughout this year a couple of the new programs planning and development are running. Ladders Up, their job training and job placement program, providing ladders of educational, so higher and higher levels of educational training opportunities, and really those that are aligned with the current job openings and what we see in the near future in terms of demand. Our recruiting on the road, we go out to the road, different municipalities and employers, trying to connect our local employers with those in our community who are looking for a new job. And a somewhat relative new one, Make Monroe Home. Basically, that's looking to provide hands-on skilled job training through rehabilitating some of zombie homes in our community and returning them to active ownership. So, Madam Chair, that concludes the presentation, and we'll take questions at the table.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions with regard to the presentation? Yes, Legislator Boyce.
Yes, I see in the 2017, there's a goal of working with the Rochester International Airport to secure low-cost carriers. Was Allegiance one of those that was a result of that? Through the chair.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, it was, and actually, to be quite honest with you, just to go a little bit farther on that, is that anytime there's an active solicitation for bringing in a new carrier or anybody else, we work arm in arm with the airport. So yes, so we provide them with the facts and information.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Adair. I have another few questions, if I could. Under page 447 in the planning and development area, why is the temporary help budget increased by $10,000 from zero? Through the chair.
Madam Chair, that increase actually reflects an employee who's going through retirement towards the end of this year, but has offered to come back on a short part-time basis to assist in bringing the new person up to speed.
And follow up to that, could you give us a little bit more with regards to what, in what capacity? Through the chair.
Madam Chair, that's really currently an associate planner who is agreed to come back at a senior planner level to help out the new person.
Okay, thank you, sir. On page 449, line, I believe it is 5010000. Why has the salaries, those salaries increased by 84,819?
Madam Chair, in the Division of Economic Development, salaries are increasing in this division. We have funded position that was previously unfunded, but authorized in the 2017 budget. It also takes into account step increases and salary adjustments due to the contract settlement.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple more questions with regards to, in that same area, through the chair. On page 449, line item 971-801, why is the communication budget increased by over $70,000?
Madam Chair, this particular chargeback is a fee-for-service chargeback from our communications department to a variety of departments across the county. This particular chargeback has changed for a couple of reasons. You may recall we've aligned positions within the communications department for the 17 budget. However, some of those positions were unfunded or partially funded. This budget for 2018 does reflect full funding of positions, and the new director of communications has a slightly different approach in the strategic planning for his department and has looked hard at the assignments his staff have and how they serve departments. So in his assessment of work to be done on behalf of planning and development, has aligned staff, which resulted in an increase in cost. I would also point out that a significant amount of work is also done for Imagine Monroe. We currently have a contract between Imagine Monroe and the county to provide reimbursement for services. So communications is going to take advantage of that contractual relationship, and this budget reflects an upcharge to planning by about $40,000, which will be reflected in our reimbursement contract with Imagine Monroe.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Franklin. There's another question with regards to this, on that same page. What's the $40,000 increase in other grant contributions coming from? Through the chair.
Madam Chair, that specifically would be the reimbursement from Imagine Monroe.
Imagine Monroe, okay. All right, that's all I have for now.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding, yes, Legislator Moyo?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. On page 259, under Economic Development Division, in terms of major accomplishments, it states that 381 jobs, new jobs, will be created within 3 years. I recognize that's a projection, but in terms of past experience, do those projections bear themselves out on a yearly basis through the chair?
Through you, Madam Chair. Actually, these numbers are much better than this. They're a little bit more robust in the last few months. We've had some nice projects come in, and the direct jobs for the next 3 years is 940. So it's a very good number. These are direct jobs. That doesn't take into account indirect jobs on it. But the good thing about that is we monitor them for every project that we have every year on an annual basis. So yes, we can monitor that, and we know where we're up or down, and pretty much it's held pretty close.
And thank you. Through the chair, you're stating that that's somehow recorded. Is that something that can be provided?
Yeah, absolutely.
To the committee?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and I'd appreciate that. Moving on to the next page, I have a question regarding the Community Development Division. It states that $650,000 is going to be is going to be invested in affordable rental housing. So my question is through the chair to the administration, how is that defined? Is that defined by our own definition, or is that defined by the federal or state governments?
That's the HUD funding that Monroe County is providing to the projects that have been developed.
Okay, thank you. But in terms of the, does it meet a 150% of median income for the county? Is there a metric that that defines something as affordable rental housing through the chair?
Yes, funding, it's below 60% of the area median income.
Okay, thank you. And by the area through the chair, do you mean the county or is it the locality, like the smaller municipality?
Through the chair, the projects are throughout Monroe County, the suburbs of Monroe County.
Yes, thank you. But in terms of the 60% of median income, is that through the county as a whole, or would it be like, for instance, the town of Penfield or the town of Pittsford through the chair?
Through the chair, the area median incomes are distributed by HUD for Monroe County.
Okay. That's all I was trying to get at. Thank you very much. I have another question on the next page. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, for humoring me. There is an acronym, MCFL-PTAC. Forgive me, can that be defined for me? It seems to be connected to defense contracting work through the chair. Who?
Through you, Madam Chair, I believe on page 260, that's the
260.
bottom one.
Yes, 260 and
that's our-
261, yes.
That's our PTAC division, and they through you, Madam Chair, they are the ones that work with small businesses to help them understand how to do business with governments. And
Okay.
primarily with the Defense, Department of Defense.
Okay, thank you. That's what it seemed like. And has the PTAC unit been established for a number of years, or is that a new program through the chair?
Through you, Madam Chair, no, it's not a new program. I think it's been around since, boy, don't quote me, I think the 1980s. But the good thing about this program is has absolutely exploded in the last few years. Just for an example, I was looking today at performance reviews, and for the year end, our two people that are in that department did 310 outreaches and contacts to small businesses within our community. Their goal is 75, and the goal is set by the federal government.
Okay,
So they've done very well.
thank you. Now, I think I have one final question regarding the community development block grant. It was stated in the presentation that the administrative costs or the costs in general have gone down over the past number of years. Has the county taken a position in terms with the federal government that we would like more money? Is there any lobbying on that front, I guess is my question through the chair?
Through the chair, we don't lobby for our funding.
Thank you. So, okay, I don't mean to say, I guess maybe I'm using the incorrect word, but is there a notice put out that's asked for more money, is there just no indication, there's no communication between the various levels of government? Is that what you're stating through the chair?
Through the chair, statewide associations always suggest that, or encourage that we get more funding.
Okay, thank you. So your statement is that through the statewide association, we do request more money from the federal government for the community development block grants?
Through the chair, yes.
And so they would be our spokespeople in the
chair.
Houses of Congress through the chair?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other, yes, legislator Boyce?
Could you give us an update with regards to our marketing efforts for the Monroe County Fair Trade Zone? Ford Trade Zone. So it's fair trade.
Through you, Madam
fair.
Chair, yes, I can. Our marketing efforts through them at this point is very simplistic, is that when we have companies that are coming in here that we see that are going to do business and trade throughout the world now, we actually make sure that part of our process is presented to them and they understand it. Do we market it and spend funding towards it? No, we don't, but it definitely is on every one of our calls to an account. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Are you done?
Let's see, I have a couple more questions. With regards to page 262, there's a significant spike in the spending on the personnel services, approximately over $150,000. Could you give that an explanation as well, Mr. Adair, through the chair?
Madam Chair, yes, even though as a department you see an increase in salaries and benefits, there are no new positions within the department, just several full-time equivalents worth of positions that were previously vacant and defunded in 2017 have been proposed to be funded for 2018. It's about 1.75 FTEs worth of positions. Throw on top of that the salary adjustments due to the CSEA contract settlement. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, legislator. Kaylee, sorry.
Yep, thanks. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple questions through you to the administration. In the past, has workforce development activities, I see that they're flat from in this past season to the next season. Have they been fully funded in the past from Rochester Works back to the county, or has there always been a discrepancy or a level that we had to cover?
Madam Chair, for my brief history, it has been completely funded by Rochester Works. I don't believe every year over the 2 decades have been fully funded, but that is something we could look into, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And then that would be the second part of it. Is there any other way that we could recoup that underfunding from Rochester Works? And more specifically, since Comida is sitting on an extremely large balance, is it inappropriate to appropriate or ask for funding into this workforce development plan since it goes for the betterment of the entire community?
Madam Chair, of course the budget guy would always like more money. Don't get me wrong. Imagine Monroe historically has funded more economic development activities as opposed to workforce development activities, and certainly we could also look to Rochester Works. However, having once been on the Workforce Investment Board, I know federal and state funding for the Workforce Investment Act has been reduced over the past several years. So it does get a little more difficult for each of those entities, but certainly those conversations can happen.
Thank you. And if I could just add a point to that, through the chair, I think when you're dealing with an entity such as Comida and Imagine Monroe funding the opportunity for employment, if we don't balance the opportunity with the workforce itself, then we find ourselves in the position that some manufacturing businesses are finding themselves now, which is we don't have the trained people to do it. So I would think that it's a hand-in-hand partnership through all of the county options to fund from as many places as possible. New jobs don't matter if you don't have anyone to fill them. So, but that's just an opinion going forward. If I may, I did have a couple more questions with regards to.
Madam Chair, may I? No, it's okay. I just want to briefly add a couple comments to that, especially, and I think your statement is very true. And when it comes to workforce development, if you take a look at what we did, what Imagine Monroe did this year with Ladders Up, that is all workforce development. That is. What we're doing is not only are we saying that ladders up to improve jobs, but we're using that as a tool as well. We attract new companies into town. We are the only county and the only IDA within the state of New York that offers training as part of our incentive package. And it's been very, very successful to date. We're up 3 months and running right now, and the numbers have been very good. Not only have the numbers been good, but what has been good is the enthusiasm that we've gotten from existing companies here that are finding it very, very hard to find people to fill positions. And when a new company comes in and we talk to them, we offer ladders up. And again, the thing of it is we never knew that kind of a program existed. So to your point, it is about getting the workforce developed a little bit more. And then I just wanted to say too that one of the other things that our budget director showed today was the recruiting on the road. And I know that recruiting on the road at this point has had, I believe, 5 events. Most of the events we are turning away companies to come to this and get real jobs out there. And it's interesting because we're only turning them away because we don't have, the venues aren't big enough to put all the companies in there at once. The last one we did was the one in Greece where we had actual people being interviewed for jobs out in the hallway. And I believe our manager of workforce development has worked very painstakingly, and next year we're even going to announce a more improved way of getting more people out there and getting them to the real jobs. But it's a marquee list of the employers in this community that are coming to us. City of Rochester School Districts, BOCES, Wegmans, Kodak. I could go on and on and on, but it's been widely accepted as a great tool for them. And then, the other part of it too is, and let's not forget that we have a wonderful, actually a great relationship with Monroe Community College and their workforce development. They are the people that have got the numbers, and they've got the people of the right education to give us the information we need so that we can target. Again, back to what we do with Imagine Monroe, it is all about jobs, and investing in jobs is where we want to spend our focus and our attention over the next 2 years. So I just wanted to let you know that. I'm pretty proud of it.
Thank you. That was the lead-in for my next question. To you, Madam Chair, through you, with the ladders up, recruiting on the road, jobs won, et cetera, do you have numbers on success or the objectives, what your numbers were for the past year? And then again, you may have answered it completely, but the funding for these programs, are they entirely on county funds, or are they funded by other entities as well?
Bless you.
I did through the chair in the very beginning. Yup. I'm gonna get you on the yup. So it's just a long question. We tend to
Through you, Madam Chair, ladders up and recruiting on the road have not even been in place for a year at this point. I will tell you this, that we are exceeding our expectations, I think, that have been announced so far. More importantly, we've started to form some consortiums with different places as far as engineering, plastics. The Society of Human Resources is using us. Hospitality is using us. We have had very, very good numbers, and at some point I would be more than happy to come back and report on the entire where we are with ladders up. Again, we are only 3 months. We're basically this is our 3rd month of doing it. And then recruiting on the road, again, new, but I said we've had 5 events already this year. We've had over 60 companies attend, and we're almost at 700 people have been looking for jobs. So it's been very successful. Oh, and then I'm sorry, through you, Madam Chair, the funding for Ladders Up is through Imagine Monroe.
All right, thank you. I just would then, if I could say finally that, again, the creation of the program, it appears to be that it's going to work. It is funded through Imagine Monroe, which brings me back to my point about workforce development. I think that that we should try to equalize these, and as much as I like having new programs, I'd like to have the ones that are already instituted and have been funded in full in the past funded in full in the future, and that's it. Thank you.
Yes, legislator, please.
The chair, if I could, but I'm wondering if we're going to continue to fund the job training program that we conduct through Rochester Works through the Monroe County Jail. It's actually Monroe County.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes.
And will there be an increase in the funding, or will it remain the same through the chair?
Through you, Madam Chair, I believe that the funding is remaining the same this year as it was last year.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions with regard to the budget presentation? The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. You have the October 23rd, 2017 minutes before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. Next item on the agenda is new business. Mr. Clerk.
Referral 17-0341, authorized.
I'm not the only one getting tongue-tied tonight. Moved by legislator Boyce, seconded by President Daniele. Is there any discussion? Yes, legislator Moyo.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I think I just have one question. I wondered, I know this is a small amount of money, but I wondered if and who might be Monroe County's voice within this program, if there is one at all. So that's my question. Is there a voice for Monroe County on this commission, if a commission exists, and who that person might be through the chair? Thank you.
Through the chair, we expect that the representation would come out of the department, the Planning and Development Department.
Okay, thank you. So just a Monroe County employee would represent Monroe County in this entity through the chair?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, that's correct. On a regular day in and day out basis, it would be a representative from the Department of Planning and Economic Development. However, as discussions have gone on, this actually goes back several years. There have been higher level contact and discussions that have gone on with members of the administration in formulating this, but to actually put the plan together and sort of work on it day in and day out, that'd be out of the Planning and Economic Development Office.
Okay, thank you.
Other discussion? All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I lost my place. Not to be lost through the chair, that the county does not want to enter into this memorandum or agreement if there is to be an LDC associated with it. I get it. But through the chair, this is an ongoing management plan if in fact that the other counties involved decided that they wanted to go in that direction. Would then Monroe County discontinue its association in this program?
Through you, Madam Chair, we'd have to investigate what options would be available to us and whether or not, for instance, we could potentially contract with the LDC that might be created by those other counties. We just at this point have communicated to the other counties involved in the memorandum and those putting it together that it has been our desire, we've stated this for a number of years, to not go the path of an LDC. And part of the purpose of this would be to investigate not only potential funding sources, but also the organizational structure for this going forward. For instance, maybe one of the counties could actually be the owner of a barge or a dredging piece of equipment and contract back with the other counties and come up with some type of rate and exchange an agreement on how that would work. And that's some of the discussions that have gone back and forth, back to Legislator Muyo's question with regards to the administration's involvement and just sort of setting forward some kind of policy guidelines and where we would like to see this go. And that one of the things that they understood from the onset going back meetings a couple years, is that we just are not interested in participating in a local development corporation.
Thank you. So if I decided to become a dredger, I might find an RFP out there some point? Never mind.
Through you, Madam Chair, quite possibly.
All those
Thank
in
you.
favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Item carries. Are there any other matters to come before the committee this evening? There being no other matters, the November 27th, 2017 meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Committee will be held on Monday, December 18th, 2017 at 5:15 p.m.